Well, our informants have told us there is, in fact, there will be evidence where it would point to Joe Biden. They had these family schemes that involve paying for things that would involve Joe Biden. So we're going to continue to dig. We're going to continue to track the money, both the money coming into the Biden accounts and the money going out of the Biden accounts. So we've got confidence that the president was involved.
House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer saying there is confidence that President Biden was involved in matters with his son, Hunter Biden. What impact will this have, if any, on the re-election campaign? The Bottom Line co-host and former Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy joins us now. Sean, good to see you. First of all, when do you think we're going to see this evidence? I mean, we remember Adam Schiff going on about evidence that he had about Russian collusion, which, of course, he didn't have. And I know it's a different party, a different situation, but voters have become a little jaded about congressmen saying they have evidence about a sitting president of a different party.
Yeah, I don't know, David. I think the problem is the Congress isn't made to do investigations that should be done by the FBI. And the FBI, it appears, is really allergic to investigating Hunter Biden because that may lead them to Joe Biden. So I think it's going to take time. You know, they have a small staff in the House, a small staff. You might have 50 people, but 50 people to try to get this evidence, especially when I think you're going to see banks try to stonewall and thwart this investigation as well. I think it's going to be challenging, though in the end they may get. And to the original question, David, I think if the evidence comes out in regard to Hunter Biden and what he did in foreign deals and how he accessed his father as an influencer to get these deals done, and whether Joe Biden made money as the vice president from the deals that Hunter Biden put together, that means Joe Biden is compromised. This knowledge will completely upend the coming election in 2024. Joe Biden will be unelectable because he will have sold his country out so his family could make money.
There's a lot of what ifs there, and I just want to go with you for a little bit in that direction. If there is some specific evidence, it's not just another congressman talking, but if Comer does deliver and show us evidence, could he have done something that is impeachable? And would the Republicans really want to impeach President Biden before the next election?
Well, because they get Kamala Harris if they impeach him, right? Successfully. Yeah. But it makes him unelectable, right? Is it criminal?
So your answer, forgive me for interrupting, but your answer is no. Even if there was evidence of an impeachable offense, the Republicans probably would not want to impeach him before the election. Is that right?
David, my answer is an affirmative maybe. They may impeach him, but I'm telling you, this is criminal.
You're not a politician
because as a member
anymore.
of Congress, a congressman or a president or a vice president can't make money by selling influence to their office, and that's the allegation. And David, this is really simple. Do a forensic audit. You can tell whether Joe Biden was making money from Hunter Biden. It's not that hard. The FBI refuses to do it. But if this investigation isn't done, the American people will lose faith in their government, that there's not equal justice under the law, and you don't have a government that's for and by the people. You have a government that's for the elites and for the Democrat Party, which is something very different than what our founders envisioned.
Well, unfortunately, so many Americans already have had that disappointment with their governing body or all of their governing bodies, whether it's in local elections that can't deal with crime, whether it's in national elections that can't deal, or national government that can't deal with the pandemic. And of course, that's led to a lot of Americans just fed up with the current candidates, whichever party's running, because they have this problem with government. We're in a dangerous position when Americans don't trust their government, their representatives.
But David, when Manafort is prosecuted, when Navarro is prosecuted, when Donald Trump is prosecuted, when General Flynn is prosecuted, it seems like there is justice for one party. But when you have all of the evidence, whether it's taxes or guns, specifically in regard to Hunter Biden, he's not prosecuted at all. No doubt there is a dual-tier justice system, and it goes against Republicans in favor of Democrats, and I think that's why people are losing hope. And again, I wish the Justice Department wasn't politicized at all, but it is, and to great effect for the Democrat Party. Just think about this. The Democrats, through the FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA, they used that power for 4 years convince the American people that Donald Trump colluded with Russia. It was fake. Right. It was false. And then you have 51 intelligence officers that come out and say the laptop's not real. The government is being used for political purposes, which is why the American people don't have faith in their government.
I just wonder how we turn that faith or lack of faith around, because you can't go much longer with that lack of faith in a democracy. Sean, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll see you on your show tonight at 6 p.m. on Fox Business.